Hello, my most devout followers, and welcome back to the Celestial Perch. Today, I have a new video. This one will be another ethic deep dive, a sort of in-between video while I'm working on the Machine Empires build. Admittedly, I don't play Machine Empires very much. I do occasionally, but I wanted to do a bit more research, dive into some Let's Plays, some playthroughs, as well as some tournament play, and just see how people are playing Machine Empires and see if I can consolidate a lot of that information into a useful build. But we can jump into our next ethic deep dive, and that will be going over Spiritualist. Now, before we get too in-depth into the video, I just want to preface this with I have a bias towards the Spiritualist ethic. It's probably my favorite, so take everything I say with a slight grain of salt. There might be a little bit of hidden bias inside here, and although Spiritualist has gotten better over the years, it's still nowhere near the best civic in the game, but it is my personal favorite, so I have to at least mention that before we get into this. But looking at Spiritualist, we do have some pretty nice bonuses here. Starting with the main bonuses, we get plus 10% monthly unity or 20% monthly unity for the regular and Fanatic versions, as well as minus 10 or 20% edict cost and upkeep. As well as we have several principles to keep in mind. We get the Veneration of Saints edict at the start of the game. We can build temples, and our administrative offices at the start of the game are replaced with temples, as well as our commercial zones are replaced with temples at the start of the game on our capital. And lastly, we cannot use the Citizen Rights AI policy, which is unlocked as soon as we get the Synthetics Tech or Positronic AI. But looking at each bonus specifically, we'll start at the top and work our way down, and we're starting with the monthly unity, being 10% for regular Spiritualist and 20% for the Fanatic variant. This bonus is quite nice just initially because it applies to just your monthly unity. Not just jobs that produce unity, but anything within your empire that will give you unity, you get 10 to 20% extra. In addition, with the unity rework, a lot of new things cost unity. So whereas before unity was pretty much relegated to almost just traditions, now we have leaders and leaders upkeep. We still have traditions, we have most edicts and their upkeep, some planetary decisions, influencing elections, reforming our government, and quite a few megastructures now also cost unity to build and advance through the stages. So if you're trying to build like a science nexus, a mega shipyard, strategic coordination center, all of those will require a hefty sum of alloys and a lot of unity. So the overall value of Spiritualist has gone up as the game has progressed. And just in general, to develop your empire, you need a healthy unity generation, and Spiritualist and Fanatic Spiritualist will assist you in that endeavor. Now next, looking at the edict cost and upkeep, you may be thinking to yourself, well hey, this is just additional unity because the edicts, as they work within the game now, you have an edict fund, and if you spend over that, then it will dip into your actual unity production. So if you reduce the upkeep, that means you won't dip into your unity production, but you have to keep in mind that although this is nice, there are also other strategic resource edicts, as well as energy edicts, and just other things that cost just resources aside from unity. So Spiritualist will help you reduce that, and can allow you to run just more edicts than other empires. Now, moving on to the next principal benefit, we gain access to the Veneration of Saints edict at the start of the game. This will give us 20% priest output and 25% Spiritualist ethics attraction. The priest output is quite nice, as the additional unity and amenities you get from priests will mean that you'll be able to go through your traditions quicker, you'll gain access to additional leaders if you want to purchase them and choose a specific leader, as well as the amenity bonus here, because your priest will be producing you base 2 amenities, will mean that your priests can supply your planets with enough amenities within the early game that you won't need to build as many entertainer jobs, or you won't need to build them as soon as other empires, meaning you can work other jobs instead and get those benefits. Now, moving on to the temple building, which we unlock. I just jumped into a game here to show you what it looks like. it will take 360 days base to construct, 400 minerals, as well it has an upkeep of 2. The main benefits here being that we get 5% Spiritualist Ethics attraction and 2 priest jobs. Now looking at the priest job specifically, we can see here that it has an upkeep of consumer goods and will produce us unity and amenities. Now, another benefit to keep in mind with the temple is that rather than starting with the administrative offices and the commercial zones, like most, you start with 2 temples instead. So instead of 2 bureaucrats, you will have 4 priests. As well, a hidden benefit to Spiritualist that people don't realize is that you start with 3 industrial districts rather than 2. This is mainly to just be able to afford the upkeep of 4 priests at the start of the game, but it does mean more specialists. So if you're running something like meritocracy, you get a bit of extra benefit out of your temples and your metallurgists at the start of the game. Now, the last thing to keep in mind is that we cannot use citizen rights artificial intelligence policy. We are restricted to either servitude or outlawed. Generally speaking, when you're playing Spiritualists, it can be difficult to upkeep robot pops, as it will impact the happiness and overall approval rating of your Spiritualist faction. And given that you will have temples across your empire, which will increase your Spiritualist ethics attraction, as well as you might be running something like Veneration of Saints or Information Quarantine, it's likely that a lot of your pops will be Spiritualist, so it can be difficult to appease them as well as simultaneously construct robot pops. Not to say that it's something you shouldn't do or ever try to mix together, and you definitely can go Spiritualist for the early game and eventually pivot out of it, but in my personal opinion, I would recommend, if you are going Spiritualist, to either lean heavily into biological or its more common form of psionics, as then you don't have to worry about robots and you can instead just ban them outright. If you ban robotic workers, it means that any robot pops within your empire will be instantly disassembled, and any robot pops that flee to you, you buy off the slave market, or that you take over from a planet will be disassembled and you don't have to worry about them. As well as there's a slight hidden benefit that you can kind of possibly use to your advantage, is that you will never see robotics technologies. This will mean that it will reduce the amount of engineering text that you see and can increase the chance that you see other especially important engineering techs like mega engineering or citadels or battleships. Now, the nice thing is any authority can be Spiritualist, so you could be democratic or imperial or oligarchic. It doesn't really matter. There are some civics that require you to be Spiritualist. Generally speaking, when you pick these civics, you tend to commit to a specific type of playstyle. You can, of course, swap these out later. It's just the Spiritualist civics are not meta picks, but they're not necessarily terrible. Now, moving on to the rating, I'm going to take a bit more time on this one, just simply so that I can explain my rating, justify it in a sense. But for the regular variant of Spiritualist, I'm going to give it an A to A+ rating, and simply the reason is that it's very easy to splash. The benefits are pretty solid overall, between the extra unity, the reduced edicts. The edict itself is pretty nice. The downside, of course, is, you can't pick Materialist and you're locked out of that. But the whole thing with Spiritualist now is with how powerful Teachers of the Shroud is as an origin, and how quickly you can finish out psionic ascension, it means that the Spiritualist faction, if you play it correctly, will basically always be giving you the max amount of happiness from it, and you'll never really have to worry about them. As well as you should be able to finish the psionic ascension by year 8, if you play it correctly, and be accessing the Shroud by year 10. Which means that around year 10 to 12, you'll be within your covenant and be receiving those benefits so much sooner than people that are not Spiritualist. And it's not that you have to be Spiritualist to take psionics, it's just that you have to be Spiritualist to take Teachers of the Shroud. And I think because Teachers of the Shroud is like an A++ origin, it indirectly buffs just basic Spiritualist to that A to A+ rating. Now, comparing it to Fanatic Spiritualist, unfortunately this is where it kind of drops quite a bit. Fanatic Spiritualist, there really is never a reason to take beyond roleplay. I would probably put it somewhere in like the C- tier, maybe even D. Just simply because the only thing it does is give you more of what it already does. So, it's not that that's bad, and I think that's fine. It's just, you're missing out on other ethics as well. So you're missing out on maybe some of the edicts of authoritarian, the ship fire rate of militarist, even, the extra pop growth speed of xenophobe, or the extra envoys of xenophile. There are a lot of other ethics that benefit your empire more than just a slight increase in something that Spiritualist already does. So that's why I would kind of put it, I think my final rating for Fanatic would probably just be C. It's pretty average. It does what the regular version does, but slightly better. But it doesn't give you access to anything else that's really cool, and is overall just kind of boring to take and locks you out of some other playstyles as well. But thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this ethic deep dive. I hope to get out the Machine Empire build sometime this weekend. I would tentatively say maybe Sunday or Monday. There's going to be, as I've said before, just a slight delay in my video production. I'm still trying to, get some more testing done, and I hope to have it out here relatively soon. But thank you, and have a blessed day.